were unable to get enough other parties online to go forward with their preferred option. But because they lost that debate a number of weeks ago, they chose yesterday to still litigate that debate and block concrete help that was going for Canadians. Quite frankly, it's not what we're seeing across the country of Canadians there to help each other, to understand that this situation requires compromises and sacrifice.
Strong words from the Prime Minister after yesterday's failure to launch in the House, where the Liberals did not get unanimous consent on either of two bills. Prime Minister, as you just saw, clearly blaming the Conservatives, saying their party got in the way for, quote, political advantage. What do the Conservatives have to say to the Prime Minister's words? Outgoing Conservative leader Andrew Scheer joins us with his view. Mr. Scheer, hope you and the family are good and doing well, and glad to have you back on the program. He blamed your party. You lost the debate already. The NDP's already supporting the Liberals. This is the format. I know you don't like it, but he's saying you decided to relitigate that instead of deliver help to Canadians. What's your response?
Well, I believe it's disgusting, petty politics that Justin Trudeau is playing on the backs of people with disabilities. These are benefits that he's waited almost 4 months to deliver. He made announcements last week. He could have recalled the House for Monday or Tuesday to allow the House to debate this. All political parties had concerns with this omnibus piece of legislation touching on several aspects. And it's actually his party that blocked the ability for the House to deal with it. Yet yesterday, I proposed a motion that would have the House meet at 3 o'clock in the afternoon precisely to deal with this legislation. We indicated that we would be supportive of that. It was Liberals who said no.
Okay, but there's a bit on that. Okay, so first on the omnibus, you're right that it was a bill that had to do with punishing fraudsters on CERB and delivering help for Canadians living with disabilities. But then the Liberals said, okay, we'll split that in half. Let's just get unanimous consent on the bill on making sure yesterday we can deliver help for people with disabilities. Why didn't you support that and then just to get the money for those Canadians?
Well, again, we indicated that we would be supportive of that as soon as the House was reconvened. I put it to you, Evan, why is it such a strange concept to Justin Trudeau that in order to get legislation passed through Parliament would sit? We proposed a sitting yesterday to deal with it in an expedited manner. We signaled our willingness to cooperate with that. We proposed the motion to have it sit. So Justin Trudeau really has to explain why he believes that he can govern this country with press conferences in front of his cottage, bypassing normal parliamentary accountability and scrutiny. We have already improved upon Liberal legislation by getting expert testimony, by hearing the impacts. We've been pointing out shortcomings. And even in this bill, there's still a lot missing. We've asked the government to make changes to their programs. They've refused. And this is something that we're very concerned about. Okay, the Liberals try to play this.
I agree. You know, you're making a legitimate point about the normal running of Parliament, and it's been a legitimate debate, and I've pressed the Liberals on that. So it's not that that's not a legitimate debate. But the bottom line is that debate was had. The Liberals in a minority parliament won the support of the NDP and the Bloc to keep this current form of parliament. I know you don't like it, but the truth is you did lose that debate. They got two dance partners. This is the new reality. Why tie support for people with disabilities to this fight to get back to what you believe is the regular sitting of Parliament would be better? Why not just get that bill and kind of disconnect it from that other fight?
Mm-hmm. Well, I really do believe that the burden of proof, the onus, is on Justin Trudeau to explain why he is so opposed to having Parliament sitting that he would stand in the way of these benefits going out to people with disabilities. Now, let me give you some examples. The government has rushed in with legislation, and they've told opposition parties that there's no time to debate it, there's no time to hear from witnesses. We have to get this enacted quickly to get benefits out to people. We say, okay, we facilitate the passage of those pieces of legislation, and then we spend weeks and months pointing out the people who have been let down, the gaps and the holes that people are falling through, and the government still hasn't fixed it. We're in June now, and we're still bringing up failures in their programs that they brought forward in March and April. We don't want to see a constant repeat of this. We'd like this to be done properly so that we can get these programs done properly the first time.
Let me just quickly move to another subject. The RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki was asked on a series of media interviews, including by our own Lisa Laflamme, do you believe there's systemic racism in Canadian institutions like the RCMP? She said, no, I believe there's unconscious bias, but not systemic racism. Today, the Prime Minister said, no, there is systemic racism in the RCMP. Mr. Scheer, is there systemic racism in the RCMP?
Well, first, let me say, to the question of whether or not there's systemic racism in Canada, I think the answer is clearly yes. We can look at policies within the Indian Act that denies the same rights to people living, Indigenous Canadians on reserve, denying them rights that other Canadians have off reserves. We pointed out that Bill Blair, the Liberal cabinet minister, instituted card checking in the city of Toronto when he was chief of police. You know, I would challenge Justin Trudeau, though, if we want to make sure that when we're calling out systemic racism and we're calling out examples of that, we have to make sure that politicians like Justin Trudeau aren't allowed to just be saying these things as kind of a symbolic statement. If he is aware of systemic racism in the RCMP, he's been prime minister for over 4 years now. He has the ability, this is a national federal police force, he has the ability to address that immediately. So if he's aware of it, he needs to clearly explain exactly where it is, how long he's known about it, and what he's going to do to fix it.
Well, okay, but he has talked about systemic racism. Let me just reiterate the question to you. Do you believe there's systemic racism inside the RCMP?
Again, you know, he can say it. He can say that there is, but it's up to him. He's the prime minister.
I'm asking you, though. To be fair, I'm asking you. What's your view? Is there systemic racism?
He is the one that said there is. So again, you know, he needs to tell parliamentarians, tell Canadians why he's known about this for so long without doing anything about it. And my point here is, Evan, is that this is just another example of Justin Trudeau's phoniness. You know, saying things, making these kinds of statements without taking ownership and responsibility for his own actions. He has been the prime minister of this country for over 4 years without doing anything about a problem that he knows exists.
I agree. I mean, he's appointed this commissioner, Brenda Lucki, who denies there's systemic. But I'm going to ask you just the third time, just if I understand that Justin Trudeau he says there's systemic racism. The commissioner of the RCMP says there isn't. You're the leader of the official opposition. Do you believe there's systemic racism in the RCMP? It seems like a simple question. What's your view?
Well, look, I believe that there are, of course, acts of racism and discrimination. I'm not in a position to contradict the commissioner of the RCMP. In my role as leader of the opposition, I'm here to hold Justin Trudeau to account. And what I would say is that if Justin Trudeau is contradicting his own commissioner, he needs to tell us exactly why she's wrong, where are the aspects of systemic racism that he's aware of, why he hasn't done anything about it for so long, what he proposes to do about it, so that we don't just get into another situation where Justin Trudeau makes these statements and gestures without any action, without any meaning behind them. And I think that's what so many Canadians are frustrated about when they see Justin Trudeau throw these types of things around without clearly identifying what it is that he's talking about.
Although, to be fair, many marginalized groups, including the National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, told me the first step is to acknowledge it and to say yes. He said, yes, there is systemic racism. The Prime Minister acknowledged it, but you, sir, are not acknowledging it.
But would you agree, Evan, that then the next step would be to clearly identify and explain where that systemic racism is so that we can do something about it? I mean, recall Parliament and say, look, we found exactly the aspects of the RCMP that we believe are systemically racist, and here's what we're going to do about it. That's not what we're hearing. We're hearing Mr. Trudeau, again, just making these statements without clearly identifying what it is that he's talking about.
And it's a fair point. What will the actions be? Andrew Scheer, I got to leave it there, sir. I've always appreciated having you on the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much.